So you may be saying to yourself that perhaps the situation with Democrats basically trying to ignore all good news on COVID and pretend that the Southwest and that the Southern Belt, the Sun Belt, is being overwhelmed and all this, that perhaps that is being overplayed. Like, why are they doing that? The reason they're doing that is, one, they have a bad candidate in Joe Biden, and two, that bad candidate is a shield for a far more radical Democratic Party. So let's start with Joe Biden, who is just a terrible, terrible candidate. So yesterday, Joe Biden was asked about the cognitive test. So he had said earlier that he's taken all sorts of cognitive tests, right? And then he was explicitly asked by Errol Barnett of CBS News whether he had, in fact, taken the same cognitive test that President Trump took. And he's like, no. And then he says to Errol Barnett, a black interviewer, he asks him whether he has taken a cocaine test, which, let me just say, if Donald Trump asked a black interviewer whether they had recently taken a cocaine test, the suggestions of racism would be in the air immediately. But Joe Biden is allowed to get away with anything with that weird Cesar Romero Joker smile because he is a Democrat and Democrats are allowed to get away with everything, according to me. Here was Joe Biden being both senile and foolish.
Have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental, my physical as well as my mental fitness.
Yeah, how's that going? I'm fully willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental health. So your narcoleptic Democratic candidate, he's got a problem on his hands. He's a bad candidate. So he has a couple of advantages. One is that Donald Trump is extraordinarily volatile and makes lots of boo-boos. And the second is the COVID situation. And so Democrats are playing both to the hilt. They have to do that because the truth is that their policies suck. Okay, what we've seen in major cities is they're talking about defunding the police. They are watching as crime rates skyrocket in major cities around the United States. Joe Biden is not going to stand in the way of any of that. There's tape of a Minneapolis business owner that was going a little viral yesterday talking about how they need more police in Minneapolis because this is insane. I mean, Minneapolis is being overrun by criminals because the city has basically decided to let the law-abiding go by the wayside.
In the night, it's no security, sure. So there are a lot of people try to get inside in the back, stealing things in the back, and we need more police.
Okay, but no. That guy's probably, you can hear he has an accent. It's probably because he's internalized his whiteness. That's the reason that he's saying we need more police. By the way, Joe Biden trying to figure out who his VP candidate is going to be. And I think at this point, the front runner is pretty obviously Susan Rice. I think he hates Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris hates him. I think Kamala Harris, he better have a food taster if Kamala Harris is his vice president, is all I can say. I mean, this is going to be like Lenin and Stalin. Like one day Joe Biden has her up to Camp David and the next day they're wheeling him out on a gurney. Like this is, I do not trust Kamala Harris. Let's put it that way. In any case, Susan Rice is extraordinarily radical. She's been able to get away with being extraordinarily radical because she hasn't really been in the public eye. She's been in the public eye for basically two things in her career. One was lying openly about Benghazi, suggesting that the Benghazi terror attack was not in fact a terror attack. It was a response to a YouTube video, which is insane. And second, Susan Rice is famous for having unmasked Michael Flynn, right? She's famous for having been deep in the center of the entire effort to gin up the Trump-Russia collusion scandal. Those are her two claims to fame. And suddenly she's on the VP shortlist because she's a black woman, because too many folks in the Democratic Party halls of power have decided on an affirmative action program for the VP. They're not going to go with somebody that may be the best qualified. She's never held elective office, for example. They're not going to go with somebody who Biden is even most comfortable with. They have to have somebody who checks particular racial boxes. Here is Susan Rice. She is a radical. She's a very radical person. On foreign policy, she's incredibly radical. She believes in basically a Bernie Sanders foreign policy. Here she was yesterday on defunding the police, talking about taking money away from the cops.
We have a long history of inequality, of oppression that endures in this country. And we need the police to be part of the solution. In some instances they are, in other communities they're not. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. So I'm for reimagining the role of the police, getting them out of things like social work. I'm for responsible reallocation of resources where that makes sense to invest more in our communities and the health of our citizens. But it doesn't fit a one-size-fits-all approach. You can't just take money away uniformly and put it somewhere else, or take it away altogether. I think we need to look at this community by community and be quite thoughtful about it.
Okay, that's a mealy-mouthed way of saying, yes, she wants to take money away from the police. And she's on the mainstream Democratic side. The far left is grabbing control of this party. So Donald Trump said yesterday that Joe Biden is basically a puppet for the radical left. This is correct. It is true. I mean, Joe Biden is a puppet for the radical left, and he's going to have to answer some serious questions about dissociating from the radical left pretty soon. At some point, he's going to have to answer some questions. And that's when this race actually gets kind of interesting. Remember, we're still pretty early here. Here's President Trump going after Biden.
He's against that group, and it's not him. He's told what to do. He's a puppet for the radical left.
Okay, so he is correct about this. And what is the radical left? They're in the ascendant. They're in the ascendant. You can watch it happening in real time. AOC yesterday said about the Green New Deal that they have been moving through the Democratic halls of power, and they are gaining support for their insane Green New Deal, a program that would essentially bankrupt the entire Western world on the back of bad science. We've talked about AOC's insane Green New Deal, her suggestion that we get rid of airplanes and that we all take trains for some reason, and that we retrofit every single house in the United States, and that we stop using all carbon-based fossil fuels, and all of this is nonsense. It's like serious nonsense. But AOC was stumping for Ilhan Omar yesterday. Ilhan Omar, I believe, did win her primary. Rashida Tlaib also won her primary. AOC yesterday was stumping for the Green New Deal. This lady is in the ascendancy in the Democratic Party.
Oh, you introduced this sweeping legislation. Why didn't you pass it yet? And we're like, first of all, we've been here for 5 minutes. Second of all, even with resolutions like the Green New Deal or your housing resolution or lots of other big progressive resolutions, we've actually been creeping towards getting a majority of the Democratic caucus signed on board. And so a lot of people think that there's only like 2 people on the Green New Deal. No, there's over 100 members signed on of Congress signed on to the Green New Deal.
And she's right about this. She's correct about this. She is the one who is now pushing forward the ship. Did you know that every like on this video creates one additional leftist tier? Don't ask me why. That's called science. To take advantage of this amazing opportunity, hit the like button.